ask you about UBI because, of course, you've seen that the Spanish government announcing that they want to move forward with it. You've seen the Pope come out just the other day and saying we need universal basic income. I mean, the way that you thought about it, first of all, was $1,000 a month check for everyone. When you see what's been happening now, the number of people that are being thrown off the rolls, the unemployment level we have right now, how does it make you think? Does it change the nature of the universal basic income that you think is required in terms of the urgency, in terms of the amount, in terms of how it's actually implemented? How's it changed your views?
It's reinforced my views in just about every respect, Ian. I thought we were in the midst of a slow-moving crisis before the pandemic. And what this pandemic has really done is it's accelerated trends that were already happening, where we were already seeing the Amazonification of our economy, the closing of brick and mortar retail, education heading more and more online. And now all of those trends have been revved up. I've been saying to people that it's like we were experiencing 10 years of change in 10 weeks. And so when I advocated for a $1,000 freedom dividend during my campaign, I thought we needed it immediately, but now the need is almost existential because you have millions of Americans who are out of work. They have a very unclear future. A lot of the jobs that have disappeared are not going to come back. So we need to put this stimulus money into our hands, but then we need to make it monthly and ongoing throughout the crisis. In my view, it should extend beyond the crisis. And to the extent my thinking has changed, it's been in the amount, where I now think that an amount greater than $1,000 would be helpful and called for.
What do you, first of all, why would you say that? And secondly, what's the figure you're thinking about? How'd you come to that figure?
Well, the $1,000 a month was never going to be enough for most people to do more than maybe eke by very, very marginally. The thought process is that it would be a supplement on top of existing gig economy work and other forms of income. But now you've essentially turned the gig economy off in many industries. You've cut off any source of income to people. And so the levels that we're getting in the stimulus checks, I think, are appropriate. This $1,200 per adult, $500 per child. I wish it weren't means tested. And I also think that there are all these gaps in what we're doing with the stimulus checks right now, where there are many, let's call it 19 or 20-year-olds who are taken as dependents by their parents. So the 19 or 20-year-olds getting zero, and then the parents are also getting zero because the $500 only applies if you're 16 or younger. So I would have made it much more of a blanket, unconditional, no means testing, giving it to everyone. And I think that the amounts that they're looking at, where it's essentially somewhere between $1,200 and $1,800 per person, would be appropriate on a monthly basis.
I mean, so many things that we've said before we couldn't possibly do. We can't afford them. There's no way to pay for it. And we're now looking at a deficit that's probably going to be 20% of GDP or more this year. Not worried about what we can pay for. We've got this massive crisis. I'm kind of wondering, do you think we're just going to end up backing into a kind of UBI? Because everyone knows you can't stimulate the economy until you provide relief. And if you've got a large percentage of the workforce that's been kicked out of the workforce and isn't coming back for 3 months, for 6 months, for 12 months, for 18 months, I mean, at some level, you've got to keep providing these folks checks, right?
I think you're right, Ian. We're going to wind up at a universal basic income type reality, and we're probably going to back into it piecemeal. Like you have this stimulus bill, but they're already back at the table trying to figure out what the next stimulus could look like. So to me, it's vital that we don't stop with one payment, because the fact is this $1,200 isn't going to last people very long. The desperation is just going to continue into May. And even if parts of the economy reopen, we have to be realistic that you're going to see, at best, like a staggered climb back toward where we were. It's not going to come back immediately. So I agree with you. We're going to wind up either going forward into a universal basic income or slumping into it because Congress just keeps throwing logs on the fire.